name is Douglas E. Strait. Middle initial stands for Emerson, which is my father's first name. I am 68 years old. I'm retired and I'm living in Columbus, Ohio. And I am retired, but I've retired from being unemployed. I've never had a career at anything, just many different kinds of jobs. But I have used many of these experiences in these books and movie ideas that I have. The writing actually started way back in the 4th grade with a writing assignment. Teacher was trying to teach creative writing. We had to tell a story in 3 or 4 paragraphs. I've actually used that's my children's book. It's based on that story because my mother kept the papers from back then. And that's Our Trip to Neptune is the title of that book. Now later on, junior high, I started writing short stories because, again, a friend was doing it and I decided to try it. Later on, in the 1980s, I was writing letters to the studios, trying to suggest some of my ideas for movies until 1996, I had an opportunity to meet Oliver Stone. And it was through him and his staff, the ones suggested I write screenplays. He agreed to look at some of my ideas and tell me what he thought, you know. And I also had a co-worker who was a writer, and I just threw a lot of questions. I just decided to try it. And there's a lot of books out there about explain how to do it, and there's software nowadays that help. But that's how it started. I also had an agent right from the start. Hannah in the Lake Beast history is about a young college girl. She's a marine biology major who sets out up at Lake Erie with a scuba diving class to earn her what they call a certification dive. You have to perform these skills in the water. But she does not finish it because while out on the Lake Erie, she sees a fatal boat crash, and she's the one who rescues the surviving, I guess, his 2 brothers. Now he claims later on that he and his brother were attacked by a legendary lake beast, which sounds nuts at first. But as things turn out, it turns out there's an element of truth in what he was saying. And Hannah starts to realize that there's something more sinister going on. And that is where the mystery begins. It's something that came from a lot of reading. I took a course in travel and tourism where I was learning about Lake Erie and the geography of it and the history and about what they call the South Bay Bessie legend, which there is an actual legend up there of it, what sounds like a type of a serpentine animal that swims around up there. And then as I went along, as I started screenwriting, this was my 5th screenplay. And I'm looking for ideas. I jot down dozens and dozens of ideas for movies. And usually what happens is I'll take several ideas and just mold them into one. That's how I get my story. You know, this particular story is about, I use this movie right back here behind me, Dr. No, as a guide to how it's going to structure the story. Again, there's a lot of reading. South Bay Bessie legend in the Lake Erie. There was a fatal boat crash up there in 1992, where again, there was 2 boatloads of people trying to chase whatever this creature was. You know, and somehow they collided and someone was killed. And so that gave me my beginning. I could begin the story on action. And again, it just is piece by piece as I kept learning things. On Put-in Bay up there, there's a cavern which is below the water level, which I thought was interesting. And later on in the fall of 2000, I went with a group of people on a cruise to the Western Caribbean on the Cayman Islands. A buddy of mine went on a 3-man submarine down the underwater. See, Cayman Islands are actually the summit of a large underwater mountain. And what he did on that shore excursion on that submarine, it just clicked right there. I had my story. It just had been swinging around in my head for a long time. So I look for plausibility. With legends, I always look for some type of explanation as to how it got started. It's just that with animals, they're a little more provable, I think. Again, I do think that there is a freshwater eel living in the Great Lakes. It hasn't been completely proven, but you know, there's a lot of indication that this is what they're dealing with. Well, I think that's one of the ones that where they kind of blend together. Yeah. I don't know how long it took really, because again, it was a screenplay, and the book was just an experiment. Later on in mid-2000s, I just wanted to see if I could write it in book form. And there's like 2 others I did that with. And again, I don't know, a lot of years went by before I decided to go back to this and edit and try to improve the story so that I had a legitimate book that I could publish and sell. It's all just fun. It's just, it's a quick read. I use a screenplay style of pacing on these things so that you can read these books in like 3-4 days normally. It's really just a fun read. It's not really intended for any political cause or anything. It's just entertainment. What would I expect the reader to experience? Again, it's really nothing intended other than it's just entertainment. Just something, it has an ending. It's like a James Bond movie. And again, if it's made into a movie, that's what I want them to experience, is that excitement. The conclusion is just very spectacular. And that's all it's intended. It's just fun. Well, the hobbies, I have golf and walking and guitar. I practice every evening. I walk dogs for recreation, and this is, I get a lot of joy out of hanging around with friendly dogs. You know, they're just fun. This time of the year there isn't much because of the weather, but I really get into golf in the spring, summer, and fall. 2015 is when I started. It started out as a suggestion. I was looking for new hobbies and things to do. I was going to a therapist for something else. I was just talking to this person about trying to find new activities, and it was suggested that I walk dogs. I just volunteer at the county dog shelter. That's how it started. But when you get involved with dogs, you see just how cruel people are to animals, and you start to care a little bit, and it just grows. In a county dog shelter, you encounter the bait dogs, which are dogs that are used in dog fighting rings. They're basically tied up, and the fighting dog is allowed to attack and just chew up this dog, you know. And then when these dog fighting rings have nothing else to do with them, they just let them loose in a neighborhood, and they end up in the dog shelter. And you see these dogs, they're really nice dogs, but they have scars all over their face. And it can, you know, but depending on the person, you can get really angry at these people that do these things. That's how it started. And then I moved on from there to a different shelter and a dog rescue group. And that is another area where you see a lot of abuse with dogs, and you want to put a stop to it. When I walk these dogs, I try to make sure that we have a great time together, because I want them to have fun. This is what they call enrichment for a dog. It's because they're a social animal, and they can't really live in a cage all the time, because it'll start to deteriorate psychologically and physically. And the idea is to keep them busy and happy all the time, and keep them socializing. It's one of the most rewarding things I've ever done is getting into this dog rescue group. Sometimes just for a short term. Here in the condo, I can't really keep a dog. It's a lot of clutter here and I have no room for a crate. That's very important, keeping the dog safe while you're not home, so I really can't do that. But see, again, when I first started doing that, I used to have trouble with depression. I go into there and they're trying to figure out how to get myself out of this. It doesn't feel good. I go into a cage with a dog and they roll over on their back for a tummy rub, and I just come right out of that. You know, they make me laugh. There's always a dog. Every time you go into these shelters, there's always at least one dog that will make you bust out laughing. So if you want to laugh every day, go hang out with dogs. My success at handling dogs is measured by the number of times that I am being kissed on the hand or even the face. I get up there and you wash your face. That's how I tell that I am succeeding at what I do with them. I just wasn't getting anywhere. Screenwriting is actually harder than writing a book. I just wasn't getting anywhere with it, and I could never perfect them. Now again, I had 3 books I had already written, so I decided let's try that route. Go back and just edit these things and start writing and turn all of the screenplays into books. And self-publishing is actually the most affordable way of doing it, but it's very hard to market the books. But again, these book marketing companies and even the movie producers read these books. They're able to get in and they're trying to find stories to make into movies. That's how I was discovered. But I get offers every week for these books. I have written 19 books. 18 are based on screenplay, and you have the one children's book that was just written on a story I wrote back in the 4th grade. Right now I'm out of ideas. I don't have anything further to do with it. I have a few notes on possible stories, but I don't know if I'll ever be able to put them together. Going back to the dogs, now one of these books is a story about a protagonist is a blind man and his pilot dog. And then both of these characters, the blind man and the pilot dog, are based on an actual man and a dog that I once knew. And again, the dog, it's called Bus Number 89. And the dog is actually a character, and it helps to move the story. Going back to the believing in legends, I don't believe in legends, and that has a big factor in the stories are right, because one of them, for example, has to do with a couple. They're ghost hunters. They're going into sub-Appalachia to investigate a ghost legend. And I can't write about ghosts. I just can't wrap my head around that thing. So it's another story where they get themselves into a different type of mystery. It's a murder mystery, basically. It's called The Tunnel at Rogue's Hollow. Again, I wanted to bring up some of the other books. That's 3 so far. There's one up here behind me, Backwoods Snatcher. That's another. That's one of the ones that's maybe a movie or we're working on. That is actually a better story than the Hannah and the Lake Beast mystery. I actually would encourage people to read that. It's a small town surrounded by a vast forest. Somewhere in the area there was a serial child killer, and he kidnaps a little girl in this little town. It only has 2 people in the police force. They're trying to find this individual, again, forced all around this little town. And how do you do that? You don't know who this is. And it just gets into this mad chase after the trying to rescue this little girl. The story just builds and builds and builds. And it's a thriller, another murder mystery. The ending will surprise anyone who reads it. I don't know. It goes back into childhood. I've always enjoyed movies, especially the adventure movies. I'd worked a series of jobs I was just very unhappy with. In the 1980s, I was working at a private golf club, and I'm laid off every year in the winter. I just decided to use counseling to try to find what type of profession suits me, and it just turned out to be the motion picture industry. So I started taking classes up at Ohio State, the cinema production. They discontinued that course of study, but from there I started volunteering for community access television, and that from there is where I found some of the paid video jobs. And it just something that over time it just evolved into a stronger interest in movies and how it's done. I've had contact with a few local celebrities, even global known celebrities. Oliver Stone, I mentioned. I also met Don King. That's the only two national celebrities. It's just been local people. The show was hosted by one of our ABC affiliate news people that interviewing Holocaust survivors once. So you get into really interesting topics doing that. Deborah Walley, for those who didn't know who she was an actress. Back in the 1960s, she was in one of the Elvis movies. She played Gidget in Gidget Goes Hawaiian, in some of those beach blanket movies. Had a long career. She quit acting in 1974 because she wanted to be with her kids. And I found her through a website called Elvis's Women, which is about the female co-stars in his movies. And I was reading about her, and it said in there that she writes screenplays and produces children's videos. And it also had a contact email where he talked to her. And I just asked her, I told her about my screenwriting and how interested I was in the movie industry, and she just told me to never give up. The squeaky wheel will get the grease, is what she told me. And I use that line in some of these books. It's a piece of dialogue I put in a lot of these. If I can get these books made into movies, I am hoping that we can do a little salute to her in the opening credits. I'm going to request that, because she had a hand in this. The motion picture industry has always been the goal. It's not so much publishing books, but it's all right, doing that. But I want to see them made into movies. I'd like to see it made into a movie. I think it'd be exciting. This one and several of the books, I intentionally wrote them so that you can make sequels or even a TV series out of them. So I think it has a lot of potential with what you can do with it. My hopes for Hannah and the Lake Beast Mystery is to have it made into a movie with possible sequels or even a TV series. I think it has that potential. See there where I got the idea, well, something I added to the story back in the mid-2000s. Again, I can't think of there was a black man, he's bald-headed, he used to be an FBI agent, had a TV show, but he had a segment on children who fought back against child kidnappers and won. And he had a segment where he had a self-defense instructor with a little girl, one of the little girls in the story, and taught her these self-defense techniques so that she could escape a grown man trying to grab her. And I actually used those in this book. I mean, somebody could watch that and learn something from that. Could save a life. A lot of reading and experience. One of the books is called Enter Raven, and it had to do with I get the idea from, I used to work over here at Sears Eastland, over here, right here. It's closed now. But because of where I worked, I was exposed to a lot of what goes on with the security department. And so the protagonist is a security chief at a fictional department store. I don't think anybody has ever done that in a movie. What happens is he hires a little Thai girl from Thailand. She's kind of small, and he hires her for his security team, and it turns out he's a little concerned about her size. How is she going to deal with people who fight back? It turns out that she has these martial arts skills. Her father was a Thai Special Forces, a Green Beret, basically, and he's taught her these methods. And it gets into another mystery of a retired salesman that he and his wife are disappeared, basically, or kidnapped, and he's trying to solve this mystery of what happened to him. And this girl and her sister become his allies in this. It's a lot of action, some martial arts action in it. But again, I think that's also one that could be sequels or even a TV series from it.